Hello everyone, it is time for a little bit of our very casual, mostly unedited garden stroll. It's been 2 weeks since I've done one of these for various reasons, mostly because the weather has not cooperated. Last week I was in Kansas City, so I didn't get home until very late Saturday night. Had a great time in Kansas City, by the way, speaking to a wonderful group there. Got a little glimpse of spring while I was there, had some life-changing barbecue. It was fabulous, but we've been missing a couple of these casual videos 2 weeks in a row now. So I'm actually filming this Saturday morning because once again, it appears that the weather is going to be working against me. At some point this afternoon, the weather's going to go to heck and it's not going to get better until Monday. So I figured I better film this first thing rather than last thing like I usually do, because there is a lot to look at happening in the garden right now. Joining us today, possibly Dorothy, who likes to hang out here, and of course Darwin. By the way, I guess I should address Darwin's name. So yes, when I introduced him, his name was Magnus, and very shortly thereafter it got changed to Darwin because Magnus just was not a good fit. He's very much a Darwin, so he is quite the shadow in the garden, which I don't mind, although less than helpful sometimes. All right, so here we are at the garden. I've not started any sort of cleanup in this part of the garden, but there are things to look at. For instance, we've got Isla Gold tansy coming up there. Interesting thing about this plant, I have a note about what to do with it this year, because last year it got very, see what I mean? It got very floppy, and then I talked to my mom and she said, oh, she just does the Chelsea chop on it, cuts it back by half. So I have to make sure that I do that this year. By the way, no sooner did I mention that the weather's going to go to heck and it started raining. So it is raining right now. Anyway, so that's happening in this garden. We are starting to see little daffodils popping up in this area. We've got some Aranthus, winter aconite coming up, which are just the most charming little flowers. There's should be a bunch more underneath here, so I should probably clean out some of those leaves. I see some irises popping up back here. Lots of daffodils popping up. Lady's mantle starting to put some foliage on. It's all looking pretty good. I still have not put away my Christmas decorations, but that will be a good job for today when it's lousy. Our poor grass is perpetually, you know, our grass is always terrible. Like if there's one thing I just don't, well, there's a few things I don't grow well, and one of them is grass. But because of the dogs, it takes such a beating. It takes so long for it to come back. And of course, I've got my great garden mistake that we will look at until that gets fixed. More daffodils coming up here, but you know, obviously nothing, we're not even close to anything blooming as far as daffodils go. Here's some of the lady's mantle foliage coming up. I love that plant in every single form. Here's some Virginia bluebells coming up. Little purple foliage there. Actually, all through here there's Virginia bluebells coming up, which are, I mean, just lovely. This is a great, we've got all the Geranium macrorrhizum over here. Look at how good that looks. Pushing up new foliage or greening up the existing foliage, perhaps. I'm not sure which, to be honest. But this is kind of semi-evergreen here and just, you know, looking probably better than almost anything else in the garden. I've not done any of my hydrangea pruning yet except for the bobos, which you saw in a video last week. We are doing probably, well, hopefully this weekend, I'm going to make a change to this bed. Now, this bed was quite small up until 2 years ago. It kind of just was a little round thing. And then I wanted to match it a little bit better with this bed. Now, the reason that this bed sticks out the way it does is because if you were standing on the deck, you would see that the lawn makes a perfect circle. So in order to sort of semi-close this circle, I pulled this bed out here. So to offer a little bit of balance here, a couple of years ago, on a total whim, I pulled this bed out. I transplanted a bunch of I think they're teaspoon hostas into here. And just kind of divided a bunch of plants and threw them in here. I literally finished it all in maybe 3 or 4 hours in one day. But do you see these rocks right here? This is one of our downspouts, drains under to here. Now, honestly, I never see a lot of water sitting there. I don't even know how well that drain works, but it's so silly to have these rocks sitting in the middle of our lawn where people trip on them, or they're just out in the middle of everything. So I am going to just extend this bed out just to stick those into the bed. And then create a larger curve through here in order to make that work. Otherwise, it would be a very flat thing. So this bed's going to get a little bit bigger. I'm hoping I can do it as quickly as I did it the first time. It's remarkably cold out here today. In my last video where I was walking around, I mentioned that I needed to find I was looking for a nice little trellisy, obelisk-y kind of thing. And I found one. This is quite interesting, actually. I don't know how well you can actually see this, but I'll pull part of this out. So these are individual pieces, and they all sort of look like leaves. They come in multiple heights, and I bought 2 heights of them. And what you can do is arrange them into whatever pattern it is that you... Hold on, I gotta set the camera down in order to do this. So you can arrange them in any pattern you want. And so you buy them per piece in whatever sizes you want. These came from Detroit Garden Works. If you know anything about Detroit Garden Works, you know that they sell these beautiful things that you can't really find anywhere else, and that's pretty expensive. But I love it, and I think it's beautiful here. But what I love most about this is that I will be able to use these forever. Move these around, use them as 2 separate ones, use them as 6 separate ones. And it's very, it's not too obtrusive. And I think it'll be quite pretty. This is a Clematis recta purpurea compacta. It's a mini version of a purple leafed clematis. So I think it's really pretty there. I'm really happy with it. I don't mind spending money on things that I know I'm going to use for a long time. I've never regretted buying an expensive pot in this garden because I will use those pots forever. In fact, we'll see, I don't know if you took it to the dump already, but there is a pot that I bought from Target probably 8 years ago to use as a pillar. And then when I was done with that, I used it as a pot, and it finally just completely disintegrated. And I think that's not a good example of an expensive something, because it was pretty cheap to begin with. But I got my money's worth out of that for sure. This garden also obviously has not been cleaned up in any way. Where you see these little stakes, last year I tried to start this. I was putting in little short bamboo stakes next to plants, so I knew where plants were. I guess, because I don't like a lot of white plant markers, she says, as she looks around her garden and sees white plant markers everywhere. This is the new area that I planted up. This was the last thing I planted in fall. I do see a lot of things heaved in this garden, so I probably have to come in here and reset a number of these plants. Like, for instance, you can see there's some heaving here. This is Fusion of Fire or Adenia. Not a lot happening here, to be honest. A few of the, I guess I put some bulbs in here. We should be seeing some of those soon. I see a few snowdrops. Although snowdrops don't grow that well from bulbs the first year, so I don't expect a lot from that. But we're starting to see some of the skunk cabbage that grows here naturally popping up around the garden. And here's another one. They're just so cool. They're just so weird looking. Oh, and now that I speak of weird looking, I see the butterbur popping up over there. We will go look at that too. So there are things happening here, even though the weather has not been on our side. Let's go this way. And we'll show you the bulb mound in a second because it is exciting. So this is Petasites japonicus. It is aggressive, but not invasive. There is an invasive version. This is not it, and this is it. popping up here. We will keep an eye on this throughout the year because it's so wild the way it grows. But it flowers first. So those are the flowers that are going to open up. It has been spreading fairly nicely. It likes boggy conditions, so I planted it here along the creek. You can see, maybe down there, you can see all the skunk cabbage that's down there. It likes the condition much like skunk cabbage does. All right, the bulb mound. We're just starting to see the winter aconite pop up over here, but we do have a lot of we do have a lot of snowdrops coming up. And I just can't wait for the future when these really bulk up. Again, these were all planted from bulbs, which is not really the best way to plant a snowdrop, but hopefully you can see if we come down this way, you can see there's many, many, many of them. Very charming. Can't believe I just kind of recently discovered snowdrops. I get why people can become galanthophiles, as they call them. I don't want to go down the road of falling in love with them to that degree because I don't need one more plant obsession to spend my money on. I'm just going to be satisfied with whatever the bulbs are that come, the basic ones. Here's a little Oranthus working on coming up here, but I don't know. It's interesting. I'm not seeing as many as I saw last year, so I wonder if maybe that Oranthus wasn't very happy with whatever was happening over here on the mound last year. I cleaned out the vegetable garden yesterday. I was going to make a video, but I was so embarrassed about the state of this garden, you guys. In fall, it was one of those things where I just walked away from it. I just said, nope, I'm all done. And so all winter long, this just sat here looking terrible. So I did do a little bit of, well, I cleaned out all the beds, cleaned out the sides, pinned down this, this is my wonky pear tree over here that I'm like I got it very inexpensively. So I'm sort of half espaliering it, and with pear wood, it hardens quite quickly. So you really got to make sure you get it down. So I pinned down some of these branches. I do rotate beds in this garden. So these two beds will be the tomato beds this year. So I found my, here it is. I said last night, I said it must be spring because I've left my first glass in the garden. That was my cocktail from last night that I left out here because last night it was like 65 degrees. Today I'm going to say 40 if we're lucky. So these two beds, ooh, Darwin, sorry, tripping over dogs. These two beds will be the tomato beds this year. Last year the tomato beds were, I think the tomato beds were, yes. So last year, this bed and this bed, I always do two tomato beds, so I just make them across from each other. Those were the tomatoes last year. The year before that, they were those two. I really meant to move them down here last year, but I had accidentally planted garlic in these and sort of got off kilter. So we're back on track now. I never use these first two beds for the tomatoes because this bed over here in particular, ironically, it's the southeastern-most bed, but because of this tree right here, that one tends to get a little bit shady, so I usually keep that one for greens and don't put tomatoes there. This is the garlic bed. I was just peeking through. There's actually no sign of the garlic poking up yet, which is, I gotta say, I'm a little surprised. It was growing really well. I'm sure it's fine underneath there, but interesting that nothing's showing. This is that salt hay mulch, which I'm going to be using again in the vegetable garden this year. Boy, I have to tell you what's so nice about that is that does not blow around on you. So that was good. Uh-oh, what do you have there? Okay. And I cut back these Clematis because I was in here, so since I was cleaning, I figured I'd cut them back anyway. This is the little boss Clematis. These are the ones that last year I got into a giant fight with as I tried to essentially reset them in the same pots. So one of the things that happened last year with that video was, well, first of all, if you watch that video, it's absolutely humorous because I spent basically 2 days trying to get these things out of these pots. I could not believe the entire pots, which are 22-inch squares, I think, were just a giant square of clematis roots. When I put them back in, several people said, why didn't you do the Bunny Guinness trick of removing the bottom of the pot? And it would have been the perfect thing to do. So at some point this year, it's very easy since these are wood, I will probably tip these pots over, take the bottom out of them, remove the gravel from underneath them, and allow these to go into the garden, because I think they will be much happier doing that. Clematis roots are not to be messed with. You can see these boxwoods have quite a bit of winter damage on them. Again, I believe this is all caused by just a growth that just wasn't hardened off enough before we got some real cold. So they're okay for now. So one of the things that I'm toying with over here is changing this bed line a little bit, because I have, well, some really exciting trees coming. And I really would like to put one of them right about here, right about there. But I feel like it's not going to be sunny enough there. And if you look up, I mean, you can see once we get leaves here, we're really going to have to come out. So I'm considering changing this bed line to bring this out here more, so that I can have that tree still in this general area, but out farther where it'll see more sun. So I'm going to put the drone up later today, take a picture, which I have found to be a really good way to do that. If you don't have a drone, you could certainly take a picture from a window or look on Google Earth. But so I can see that bed line and then play around with it on paper. Here I cut back all the Carex pennsylvanica, and you can see that well, there's some green in there, whether that's new growth or growth that was going to be there anyway. You can also see a lot of limbs falling down here. There's some parts of this oak tree here are not really in great shape, and we've had significant amounts of wind. In fact, I don't know if you can see here. Let's just walk over it quickly. If you can see across the road here, last Sunday night, I think it was, we had a big windstorm and we lost power, and I didn't know why, and then I came out the next morning, and this whole tree from the neighbors had fallen across and hit the power lines that are right there. So the power company came out to help with that, obviously, but I'm very concerned because those trees right there are definitely keep leaning more and more, and they will hit my garden fence if they fall. And I don't want to make that homeowner's insurance claim, because if you've looked at insurance rates lately, you'll know that insurance costs a lot without any claims. So we're going to send a message. We don't really know those people who own that very well, and they're not super responsive on email, but we'll send a message. So over here, this is exciting, which is that cornus moss, the buds. Let me just try to get us focused here. So we are starting to see some color on this. So I'm quite excited about that. This tree is just really getting more beautiful with every year. Getting that beautiful kind of wide shape to it. Just more beautiful all the time. Here's some more, geranium macrorrhizum through here, looking all green and beautiful. I think I've mentioned, well, I have definitely mentioned in previous videos like this that we're going to be working on the lighting. Boy, I tell you what, there's a reason we didn't do the lighting sooner than we are. It's really a pain in the butt. So unfortunately, our existing very ugly lights that I detest are regular voltage, not low voltage. So most landscape lighting that you buy now is low voltage, which makes a ton of sense. I like that. So we have to deal with that. I didn't know how much transformers cost for low voltage lighting. Holy smokes, it's like way more than the lighting. So anyway, and we're going to have to get an electrician and all that. So I guess there's a reason why we didn't do that sooner. But I am excited to have that done. Here's some little snowdrops down here. It's too soon to tell whether a lot of the sort of questionably hardy things, like the hardy begonias that I planted over there, way too soon to know if those may out. There's actually more snowdrops in this garden than I thought there were. So again, this area right here is where we took out a large tree last fall. That stump that you see is from that tree. So this is where a tree is going in, at least one, if not two. But our placement is really gonna be dictated by where we can make a hole, because there's a lot of tree roots running through there, and we didn't want to spend the money to remove that stump over there. In this garden over here, we have Fritillaria imperialis, crown imperial fritillary, coming up. So that's quite exciting. Also, I see some big alliums. I mean, those are big alliums back there coming up. Those are the perennial alliums in front of it coming up. More of those crown imperials over here, more alliums over here. So this should be a really pretty bed, and I would say sooner rather than later, actually. A few weeks ago, I showed this daffodil coming up. This will certainly be the first to bloom. Obviously, it's the only one that's even really up, much less have buds on it. So that is exciting. You know, I mean, it's just a pretty average daffodil, but you know how it is this time of year. Everything is exciting. This is Rise Up Lilac Days rose, which has some nice buds on it, which is great. And I think that's pretty much the main thing of what's happening in the garden right now. We have lots of projects. I'm going to try to really, you're going to have to get some warm gloves on because I can't get over how cold it is out here. Today's project, which you will see in a video shortly after this, is this clematis right here needs to move. So we'll talk through all that, and we're going to get that clematis moved. And I'd love to get the hydrangeas pruned today, just to get that item checked off the list if I'm able to do that, but we'll see. All right, so that is the garden stroll. That is what's happening a lot, actually. Everything is showing signs of life, and you know, there's just perpetually things to do in the garden, and I am not complaining. I love every bit of it. So I hope you're having a great day in your garden. Thank you for watching. Thanks for coming along on this sort of unedited, very casual garden stroll to check in on what's happening in the garden. It's only going to get better from here, right? All right, you guys have a great day in your garden. We'll see you soon. Thanks.